What does it really mean to build a school around a child instead of asking a child to fit into a school? Today, we're joined by psychologist and Tiegerman COO, Dr. Jeremy Tiegerman, to explore autism, education, inclusion, and what families need most. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about them. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Tiegerman. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tiegerman.
Reed, thank you for having me.
You're not a problem. So let's just start off with when people hear the titles like COO, psychologist, director, but I'm curious about the human side first. Before all the leadership roles, what first made you care so deeply about children who learn differently?
Well, I guess it could all start when I was growing up. I had some challenges growing up with attention focusing, and had some learning challenges in elementary school. I don't remember many things from growing up, but I do have a memory of my parents bringing me in to meet with the psychologist. My assumption is that and I was working with blocks and answering some questions that it may have been an IQ test that was administered to me, and that from that evaluation resulted in some support and some recommendations for the school and for my parents to help guide them going forward. And from there, really helped me to gain a greater awareness of what kind of learner I was at that point and what kind of learner I was going to need to be successful in school.
That just hits home for me. I remember growing up in grammar school. I remember my teachers going to my parents and saying, he can't focus.
Hmm.
He's not sitting still. He's looking everywhere but at me or at the chalkboard. And then one day they get a call and it's like, you won't believe this, but he's paying attention. And it's one class in particular. And they're like, really? What class? And they're like, general science. And
Hmm.
it's like this light bulb went off
Hmm.
above their heads. They're like, huh. And what's funny is, of all the teachers I had in grammar school,
Hmm.
I remember his name. I remember the motto he used to drill into us all the time. His
Hmm.
name was Daniel Stewart. He taught general science, and he used to always say, if you don't know what you know, then you don't know anything at all. And he
Yes.
put that on pencils and pens and hand them off to us. And if we didn't have a pencil or a pen in class, he's like, "Oh, here, give us one of his with his motto on it and everything." And that just stuck with me to this day.
Well, I have to tell you that I think that we probably have a lot in common. We already talking about things. I did have a similar kind of experience, and I can recall through my educational career some educators and adults who really made an impact on me. But I had a fifth grade teacher, and that's kind of where it kind of turned around. I wasn't really fabulous in school, and of course. I mentioned that evaluation and some recommendations that were made, but she really connected with me. It's a Mrs. Silverman in
Oh
fifth
yeah.
grade, and it really kind of sprungboard me to into secondary, middle and high school, where I
Hmm.
had some really fabulous teachers, and into undergrad and graduate school. But was my first experience with having an educator who really I felt like I connected with and was really able to understand me and to help me be the best learner that I could be at that point in time.
And that's the thing where when you family finds you that teacher that
Hmm.
understands you. Like for me, it was my special education teacher at the time
Hmm.
became good friends with my family. And we would do stuff together
Hmm.
and he was with me from the beginning to the end. And I remember before I went to high school, I remember my parents holding telling me we're gonna have to hold you back a year. I'm like, what?
Mm,
Why? And they're like, because we just don't feel you're ready for high school yet.
hmm
And all my other friends are already graduating, and I'm like, oh God. And at that time, I felt I was miserable, but my teacher was just like, listen, it's not a bad thing. It's just we feel you could improve yourself
hmm
and by going for the year again. And he was right. When you have the right teachers, you're you get taught the right way. They
hmm
treat you the right way, and it's not they understand you instead of trying to fight you, they work with you.
hmm I think that also, and again, besides just having the right teacher, it gave me the confidence. So
Yeah.
subsequently down the road, other teachers that I had may not have been as spectacular as this one
Hmm.
particular teacher, but made me feel like, you know what, while we may not be a perfect match, you could still do it, and give me the confidence to just how to figure out how to kind of work around certain things.
Now, was there a moment where this stopped being your family's mission for you and this became something personal?
Well, I think my journey, and Reed, you probably have done a little bit of research and homework. Uh, I share the same name as our current chief executive officer, Dr. Ellen Mars Tiegerman, who started the schools, the founder, still working with me to this day. She's
Wow.
tremendous, and the visionary, and really the powerhouse behind what used to be called the School for Language and Communication Development. She started school in 1985. And several years ago, we rebranded to our last name, Tiegerman, because we felt that the name was synonymous with so many really positive things in the special education field. But for my mother, she really started this program due to having this very intense and powerful experience in her childhood with her sister, who suffered a traumatic brain injury, and my mom witnessed my grandfather working every
Hmm.
day with my aunt and her sister, and it turned out to be a very successful story where she went on to graduate from high school and go on to become an MD. But for me, my journey is a little bit different, where my earlier years were kind of remembering looking at my parents and looking up to them and saying, at first I thought that I wanted to go on to the NBA and play basketball. And pretty soon I kind of realized that that probably wasn't going to be the pathway for me. And looking to my parents, my father worked in public schools as a school psychologist. And of course, I knew my mom, she was running this school, but I didn't really know what kind of school it was, because I
Hmm.
would go there during maybe some of my vacations or days off were a little bit different than her school. And certainly we were open. Her school was open during the summertime. So some breaks I would go in to work with her, and some teachers would give me some tasks to help out. I'd run around the building and just pop into classrooms, try not to annoy anyone too much. But I started to notice that some of the students, while they looked like me, and sometimes that they spoke like me, I did notice that there were some other challenges that they were having. And that always really stuck with me about these kids and some of them, they were around the same age as me, and they really pushed through and persevered and worked very, very hard. The other thing to me, which was interesting at the time, was it was my first experience about um, just meeting people who were a little bit different. And to me at the time, I was like, why do these kids who are so much like me, why do they have to go to school during the summertime? Why are they working so
Hmm.
hard? I'm running around and playing with my buddies on the playground. So it was my first experience about seeing how other people learn differently, and educational pathways and careers were different for some other people, and we weren't all kind of the same taking that path to getting to where we needed to. And as I got older, I became more aware of the kind of work that my mother was doing with the
Hmm.
special education population, and clearly with the speech language population. That's where she got her training and experience working at Adelphi University as a speech language pathologist, but also with my father, where he was a school psychologist and learning about assessments, behavior intervention plans, helping, students to learn in the classroom as best as possible. So once I got to undergrad,
Hmm.
I started to recognize that I had an interest of schools
Hmm.
and trying to help create programming for others to succeed in schools, which took me to graduate school.
I mean, that's a very interesting story. And it kind of reminds me of when I was, when I first graduated and my parents are like, okay, we want to send you to a school,
Hmm.
a university that specializes in dealing with those who are learning disabled. So they sent me off to the University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh because they
Hmm.
had one of the top programs at the time for those who were learning disabled. And I remember the dinner. We had a dinner with you and your parents and all the other new incoming students. And then
Hmm.
you got to sit down with former students. And I remember I sat down, we were sitting down with one of the kids, and he he's like, "Hey, Reed," we were talking. He's like, "I'm gonna tell you something, and this is gonna stick with you to the day you die." And he's like, "The difference between us and a regular student is this, where
Hmm.
it takes a regular student 1 hour to do their work,
Hmm.
it's us 2 to 3." In my mind, all of a sudden the gears in my head just start going, and I start thinking, and I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, where it takes they're able to process everything and get it all done. It
Hmm.
takes us longer because." We have to absorb the information that we just read, understand it, and then process it. And then by that time that's all done, it's already 3 hours.
Hmm.
So it takes us longer to do their work. And my mind just sitting there. Am I, and then like, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? He's like, yeah. He's like, but there are workarounds to make things work
Hmm.
for us. And in my mind's like, oh, so I don't have to feel like I'm behind.
Sure.
Is there a
And you
way
could do
for
it.
us? Yeah. And he's like, you can do it. You find what works for you and you apply it.
Hmm.
Things like taking notes, using color coded for note taking,
Hmm.
or if you need somebody, have somebody take the notes for you, or use your tutoring to your advantage. And it's like, wow. I knew I was different, but not that different.
Sure. And really you could see how fabulous it turned out for you.
Yeah.
Where while things were challenging, you were still able to figure out those workarounds. And that's really what we do in our agency
Yeah.
is to identify their weaknesses, even with the typically developing population. And I have a whole wealth of weaknesses in my back pocket myself that I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out how to get those workarounds. But
Mhm.
focusing on the positives, every one of our students have strengths and
Yeah.
identifying those strengths to help them realize and build up that confidence, but also to say, okay, how do I use this to get me from here to where I want to really go?
I mean, that's such a positive message is
Hmm.
and when a student finds out that they're disabled, they focus on that for the longest time. And
Yes.
then when you say, "Hey, listen, you may have a disability, but you also have a strength,
Yes.
double exceptional.
Yes.
Where you're weak in one area, you're strong in another. So let's focus on where you're strong."
Hmm.
And that's why I applaud what you do is because a lot of us who are in the neurodivergent area or just disabled in any
Hmm.
way, we feel we're alone. What you do is make them, no, you're not alone. You just need to have someone help you focus on your strengths and we'll build with that.
Definitely. And that you're capable of doing anything that you want. It's just may, like you mentioned, Reed, it may take a little while longer. It may
Mhm.
take a different pathway or different road, but the most important thing is crossing that finish line,
Yeah,
however
I
you do.
mean, I'm a very big proponent of believing that when you hit a fork in the road, they don't take you to separate paths. They take you to the
Hmm.
same path, but they both have different outcomes as how you take it.
Hmm.
One may be more challenging than the other, but it depends on how you want to go about it to reach your objective.
Of course, of course. And so, that is what we've tried to build in our agency and our programs for, we go from pre-K all the way through adulthood. So everyone's path is going to be a little bit different, depending
Hmm.
on what point you come to us and what kind of plans that we establish or create, learning plans and life plans for all of the kids and all the way up to the adults that we work with.
Now, what did young Jeremy think education was supposed to look like?
Well, that's a good question, right?
Hmm.
Because growing up, I would say that I had a pretty typical childhood. Reed, I did mention to you that had some challenges with attention focusing and clearly there um, were some motivation related
Hmm.
issues for me growing up. I don't think that I became a serious student until I got to college and then on to graduate school. But what I did notice growing up was that for me and for my peers who were learning around me, everyone had the opportunity to access something, and it really depended on what you put in, and that you would get that out. Um, Others had some challenges, and they needed additional supports, but still, for those people, even with the supports, if they weren't really motivated to work, sometimes it was challenging.
Hmm.
So it really is a combination of, trying to figure out which pathway that you need to kind of take, but also, recognizing
Hmm.
what your strengths and weaknesses are, accessing or
Hmm.
trying to get some assistance if you do need it, and then utilizing that assistance.
Hmm.
And once you do that, that can create this kind of synergy where there's growth, there's productivity, there's success.
Now, doing my research, the one thing that really stuck with me is how much his story began before you even were born, with your mother witnessing her sister lose the ability to speak after an injury. How much do you think that story shaped the culture you grew up inside?
I think it was a very, very seminal, a tremendous. It's such an inspiring story on so many levels, and it continues to this day to be the driving force behind everything that we do. It's not only and I'll get into quickly, read with you to tell you the story. I mentioned a little bit in the beginning, but I think that's what makes our agency so special is that while not everyone experienced exactly which it was essentially like a four well, it's actually a five, right? It was my mother, her
Hmm.
sister, her younger brother, my grandfather, and my grandmother. So
Hmm.
those five people were that family and experienced something that when I was being brought up by my mother, I wasn't there for it, but hearing the story and then receiving the passionate support that my mother gave me growing up was able to spread this story or share it where it is
Hmm.
shared with everyone. And then that story becomes kind of like a virus in a good way, where it's spread and everyone who is touched by the story, our history, the great passion that Dr. Tiegerman and all of our administrators have with all of our teachers, our teaching assistants, our specialists, our students, our families, all of them know this story and are so greatly
Mm.
impacted and realize that while it may look differently for everyone, my grandfather never gave up on my aunt, my mom's sister, and none of us will ever give up on anybody that we come across. If they want to be there and they come and they work with us, we will give every ounce of energy and passion that we have to never give up and make sure that child reaches their potential because we know that it's there.
Now, did you feel the emotional weight of that mission as a child?
As I mentioned to you, Reed, growing up in the beginning, it was like my mom just ran a school kind of thing like that. But as I got a little bit older
Hmm.
and learned more about the history of the school and the type of students that my mom was working with, it was a tremendous kind of feeling for me and something that helped to for me it was such a commitment and a passion to investment in life. And for me, I would say growing up, um, I, you know, I grew up in a community on the North Shore of Long Island, which was very different from what my mom grew up in Brooklyn, in her years. So they probably had less than us. And I wasn't around to see something traumatic like what my mother experienced, and it was so much harder for them. And for me, it was probably a little bit easier and more was handed to me. But this story and me working with her over the years helped me to light that fire. She had a different fire than I had of that moment of, passion of working together, relentlessness. We're not going to stop. You're going to learn no matter what. For
Hmm.
me, my passion, my fire was in seeing what my mom was doing and the teachers and the people and the children who came through our program from 1985 to right around 2000 was when I graduated from college. All of those stories and interactions and people that I came across, that was what kind of lit my fire for I'm in for this, not only to be with my mother and to carry on her legacy, but
Hmm.
was the investment in others. I want to help others to be the best that they can be. And that is what my
Hmm.
passion has turned out to be.
Now, what lesson about advocacy was absorbed without anyone explicitly teaching them?
So I didn't hear that. What was that again, Reed?
What lessons about advocacy were absorbed without anyone explicitly teaching them?
So advocacy was it was is and will always be such a tremendous part of everything that we do. And the way that I learned about advocacy
Mm.
was really was from my mother.
Mm.
We have over the years had challenges with for a myriad of issues, whether it be with school districts, whether we had issues with the state education department in the state of New York,
Mm.
whether it was with parents, whether it was with students themselves.
Mm.
And the important thing is that what she taught me was this relentless and this passionate push for
Mm.
this is what we need to do. And
Yeah.
we need to let the world know about what we're doing here and why this is important and why we need to continue with this. It's essentially a fight. It's a fight and keep pushing and pushing.
Hmm.
Because if we don't keep doing that, then um, laziness may fall into place.
Mm,
There may be a lack of awareness that people, and maybe it's not that they're trying to harm anybody, but it's just needing to make people aware of how important it is to stand up and help others, and also working with these people too, our students, their parents. We could stand at the top of the mountaintops, scream and scream and scream. But it's really them who need to learn to advocate for themselves,
mm.
and teaching the parents, what it is that they need to do and say to help their children to get whatever they need. And that's been a big component of what we've done in our programming, besides all of advocating for all of the important accommodations and supports we can give the children, is parent education, is working with parents on a regular basis to teach them, this is what we're doing. This is the carryover that you need to have at home. And this is what you need to be advocating for and helping your child to go where they need to go.
I mean, that's such an important message about the parents because if the parent isn't going to advocate for you, then how are you going to learn how to advocate for yourself when you get older?
Hmm. Yes.
The parent needs to step up. I mean, once you realize your child has a disability, then that starts the ball rolling of, all right, I need to start speaking up for my child. I need to
Hmm.
step into the IEP meetings and
Yes.
learn the process, learn the lingo, and really not let them steamroll you, but speak up and say, hey, they need this, this, and
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
And especially when they get in, even in life, you need to speak up for your child because if your child seems odd, you can't just sit there and let someone go, your kid looks weird or something. You got to speak up for your child and say, no,
Definitely.
they have a disability, they think differently, they act differently. Because when you start advocating, it's when your child starts noticing. And then
Yes, and
that's
and Reed, the other thing I want to say is I apologize. Um, some of our most challenging work that we have to do is because early on we give so much to the parents and to the students as far as support, but at a certain point in time, working with the parent is, you know
hmm
what? Your child needs to start doing this for him or herself, and also working with the child because they're so used to the support they got from their parents and the support they
hmm
got in schools. It's like I got to do this on my own. So that is a challenging piece to navigate as well. Is it's time for you to start doing this for yourself. You can, and we need to help you get there.
I mean, that's so important. And it's something I put in the book I wrote that when you get to college,
Hmm.
you are your own advocate at that point because
Yes.
you no longer have your parent coddling you and you need to speak up. You need to go to your disability office and go, okay, I have this, this, and this. I need this, this, and this, and this to help me get through my courses.
Yes, Reed, I can't tell you how many times, and not all of our students in our high school go to post-secondary education. Some go, they are successful and they go on to a community college or a four-year college, but within special ed from K through 21, these are entitlements. These supports and accommodations, they are given, and whatever way that they have to be given per the IEP or the 504 plan, they are given and forwarded to that child. Once you get to college, you're right. The child's got to go like, or the student's got to go like, oh, I got to go to this office and I got to bring
hmm
my IEP and I got to, tell them this is what I need. And that could be a challenge.
I remember when I went for my master's in England. Before I even went, when I was choosing schools, I literally said to myself, I need to find their disability departments,
Yes.
contact them, tell
Hmm.
them what I have, and say,
Hmm.
what can you do for me?
Yes.
And whoever came back was says, oh, we can do this, this, and this. And I had one of the best. I wound up going to the University of Kent in Canterbury, England. And I
Hmm.
had one of the best disability advisors there can be. A month before I took off for school, he
Hmm.
called me once a week to check in with me to find out what I needed, how I'm doing. do I have all my paperwork and everything?
Hmm.
And then we continued that meeting once a week when I got there. And people don't realize if you don't verbally say something when you're in college and you have a disability, you are making your life harder on yourself
Hmm.
because there is no one to speak up for you. No one knows you have a disability. I remember I had one professor who was a pain in the butt, who I was struggling in his class, and
Hmm.
I would go up to him and I'm like, you got to help me. I need help. He's like,
Hmm.
I'm like, it's in my disability plan
Yes.
that says you have to help me. And he goes, if I help you, I got to help everyone else.
Mm.
I'm like, no, I am specifically that you got to help me. He's like, well,
Sure.
I can't. And I came back at him again the next week, and I told him again, and then again, and finally he tried to help, but nothing would really dig into me, and I
Hmm.
wound up passing barely by my teeth with that class
Hmm.
because the teacher was stubborn and wouldn't sit down and literally walk me through step by step.
Yes. Yes. But you were persistent, Reed.
Yeah. And that's the key for kids is when you're in college, you got to be persistent
Hmm.
because there is no one else holding your hand.
That's
If
correct.
you want to struggle, it's on you.
Hmm.
But if you want to succeed, you got to let the disability department know and
Hmm.
your professors know
Hmm.
that you have a disability. You would either like a note taker because you have trouble taking notes and depicting what's important, what's not, and you want to ask if you can record.
Hmm.
Because if you don't ask for these things, you're putting yourself in a spot where you're going to struggle for the rest of your 4 years in college.
Yes.
And you don't want that, especially because you have a disability.
Completely agreed.
Now, you spent your career working inside the educational systems, but systems can sometimes flatten individually. When did you first realize that traditional education often fails neurodivergent kids?
Well, I could tell you from working in several, uh, definitely through graduate school,
Mm-hmm.
getting my doctorate in school community psychology from Hofstra University. We were exposed to a lot of different kinds of learners, different kinds of measures and assessments to help support youngsters through their development,
Mm-hmm.
and also through some of my internships working in several schools in
Mm-hmm.
graduate school and clinical settings. From there,
Mm-hmm.
I had several jobs before coming to SLCD, which became Tiegerman, and you could see that depending on what kind of setting you were in, there were some pros and cons to all of these things, to what they were able to provide and what they were also willing to provide and to support
Mm-hmm.
their populations. The other experience that I have is from going to different schools,
Mm-hmm.
similar types of schools in our um, ecosystem of schools. So Tiegerman is from preschool, which is 3 to 4 to 5 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
These programs through New York State are considered, they're not considered schools, they're considered programs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
preschool programs. These are 4410 schools. And then K through 21 is school age, or sometimes called 853 state approved non-public schools in the state of New York. So I have been touring many other schools that are kind of like us. We have many children who have come to us from public schools. We accept kids from the five boroughs of New York City DOE and of the well, Nassau and Suffolk County, the Long Island School District. So you hear from parents. I have communications with uh, pupil personnel directors, principals, assistant and superintendents about the kinds of programs that they run across the state. And you obviously see that not all is in the same, not all equal, and that is depending on fiscal kinds of, constraints, what budgetary kinds of things that they have to consider in the district,
Hmm.
philosophical too. So there may be the winds of change in certain schools and in districts as far as we view this kind of this way. We used to do it this way. We're not doing that anymore. The research suggests this. So things kind of change and evolve over time. But I think for us, what has helped us is that while a lot of the things have changed and evolved, whether it be through how people how the community looks at the neurodivergent community. What are the techniques or the evidence-based kinds of solutions to work with the neurodivergent population and all the other classifications, whether it be learning disabled, speech language impaired, we have always stayed consistent. And while not, one size doesn't fit all, for
Hmm.
Tiegerman, it's always been language is the foundation of everything. That while children and adults may present with very different or varying kinds of needs, cognitively, socially, communicatively, sometimes even physically and sensory wise, we have always felt that language is the foundation, is essentially kind of like the software program that you got to run on the computer. And if you're able to teach some language and for children to gain language, then other things fall into place from that cognition, uh, social, pragmatic kinds of things, clearly the ability to interact with others. Um, so that is what I would say about um, the educational model from
Hmm.
our perspective is that language is so very, very critical. And then of course, not, as I mentioned to you before, Reed, not everyone is the same. So everyone's needs are very different. And we will support our parents and work with the school districts to create educational programming that is unique and individual to each child per their individualized education program. And that is our mandate to carry that out. Now, that looks a little bit different in all of our schools. We have different kinds of classroom to staffing ratios. There are different kinds of curriculums in preschool and school age, uh, in a primary elementary school versus the high school. And in the high school, we are an accredited high school program where we can give out diplomas to our
Hmm.
students, but it looks a little bit different anywhere that you go in our school building, but with it being sensitive enough to meet each child's needs. And that's kind of what's key
Hmm.
to us, besides the language component, is that the one size fits all model that may be going on in the public school kind of setting or in other schools, we really hone in on what the child needs, and then we tailor their program to that for them.
Hmm. Now, was there a student or a moment that changed how you viewed education entirely?
There have been many students, and that's due to I've been very lucky as far as growing up. Of course, I was exposed while some children on their summer vacations probably were running around going to camp or at playgrounds. I was, in a school building, seeing what was going on with my mom. Um, I had a very rich and really fabulous educational experience growing up in Great Neck Public Schools, which is a fabulous school district with a wide range of different kinds of friends and people exposed, and then going on to college out of state, the University of Maryland, coming back to state
Mhm.
at Hofstra for my doctorate degree, and then getting different kinds of employment experiences before going on to being an administrator. So I worked in several preschools. So that really exposed me to the babies, and I love them. The 3 and
Mhm.
4 and 5 year olds. Um, And then when starting at Tiegerman or SLCD, I started as a school psychologist because before becoming an administrator, that was my doctorate in school community psychology. So I was in a former life a school psychologist working in the elementary school. The school expanded several years after me getting there to a middle school and then to a high school. And then several years later, I became a principal of our middle school and principal of after several years at the middle school, the high school. And
Mhm.
then I became director before I became
Mhm.
the chief operating officer. So I have had the experience of working in pretty much every sector of the pre-K through 12 and having great experiences with children, really moving very positive, sometimes not positive, that have stayed with me also. Sometimes working with kids where they weren't getting the proper support from their parents and
Mhm.
families because they were challenged at home too. They had a lot of issues to deal with, these parents, and it was hard for them to take care of their kids. So those are very tough, sad stories. But clearly, the relationships that I formed with with the kids when I was a principal in the middle school and the high school. I was able to see them graduate years down the road. Many of them came to us from the public schools, from New York City public schools, coming in middle school and high school, probably, and varying diagnoses, some with autism, some learning disabled, some speech language impaired kids, some emotionally
Mhm.
disabled kids, so that cognitively intact, but with some behavioral issues. Many of them came from the public schools, probably four to
Mhm.
five grade levels below their same age peers with reading scores, mathematics scores, and I think by the time they got to us, they were kind of beaten down by some of the previous placements that they've been in, whether it be that they were felt like that they were forgotten about, or that people quit on them, or maybe there was a bullying situation. They were just happy to get to us, a safe, calm, warm, nurturing environment. And for many of these students, they were able to, even though they had some learning challenges, they were able to catch up and graduate with a high school diploma, a Regents diploma.
Mm.
So pretty
Now,
special.
yeah. Now, what are schools still misunderstanding about most autistic students?
Well, I think, earlier on we talked about recognizing the strengths in people. So I
Mhm.
think that's really important about acknowledging, yes, and self-advocating for here are my weaknesses, this is what I have to work on. But there's so much that I am good at. There's so much that I am passionate at. Point me in the direction, help create a program where I could use these strengths to be able to leverage everything that I need to leverage, or every access everything I need to in school so I could be successful, and to give everyone the opportunity to be successful once they leave from secondary education. That is primarily one of the most important transformations our school in our high school. And we kind of brought it down a little bit in middle school. This transition program, this work-based learning program that we have created, it is imperative to help not just the neurodivergent, but all
Mhm.
students with disabilities to
Mm.
get prepared for what the heck am I going to do after high school?
Oh,
Some
yeah.
may go on to college, but even in college, as you mentioned, Reed, there were challenges
Yeah.
kind of thing like that. Is how do I do some of this self-help stuff or advocate for myself, or independent living kinds of skills. It's not just the academics, and I think that's what all of us strive at Tiegerman is to
Mm.
help, besides the academics, is get people ready for independence, whatever they choose to do. It could be a civil service job. It could be, working in a family business. It could be going on to college. Whatever it is that they want to do, we just want to make sure that they're most successful and
Mm.
prepared for it. So I think that with it, to get back to your question about the neurodivergent population, is besides helping them to gain the academic success and prepare them for those high stake exams, if they're going to take it, regents, finals, whatever it is to gain that diploma, is what do they need to do outside of school if they're going to choose to be academic or they're going to go down a vocational pathway? What do they need to, from a person, hard skills, soft skills perspective, what do they need to do to develop that stuff so that they're able to do that successfully, to access what is waiting for them afterwards?
Now, do you think society confuses compliance with growth?
Well, I think sometimes that you do see that, right?
Hmm.
But I know from my experience, well, let's start with this. I know that many people are like good little soldiers, right? Very well behaved.
Hmm.
Follow. Let's stay organized. Let's stay kind of in our lane, kind of thing like that. But I know from my perspective and my personal journey, my growth has been a little bit messy. And growth doesn't always look the same way for everyone. So I think for us, we are, like I said to you earlier, we are in the business of investing in people's lives. And growth
Hmm.
looks a little bit different for everyone. And how we
Yeah.
measure growth may need to be evaluated also about and relooked at as maybe it's not marked or tremendous growth. It was baby step growth, whatever it is, but it was growth. And we are mostly interested in helping our students, whether it be a baby step or leaps and bounds, grow. And how that growth looks will be very, very different for everyone.
Now, a lot of conversations about autism become clinical very quickly, but families live this emotionally every day. What
Yes.
have parents taught you over the years that textbooks never could?
Great question. And I think that this is, I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but this was my experience and in people that I've talked to and the experiences that I've had since graduate school. I graduated 2005. So what's it? It's a little over 20 years at this point in time was kind of everything I knew was from the textbooks and the experiences I had in graduate school. But that doesn't tell you everything. And experience um, really is a tremendous teacher. And the experience from working with the kids
Hmm.
and the youngsters that I've had, as well as I came in with a doctorate saying, hey, I got this tremendous education. It's all been the top-notch, most recent research out there. But, and I was telling people, we need to do this, you need to do this. This is how we create this plan. And then sometimes not listening to others
Mm.
and listening to the children when they spoke to me about their experiences, and definitely listening to the true experts,
The
the
parents,
parents.
yeah.
The parents are the true experts here. They know their children. They've worked, um, and everything is different. Some have
Hmm.
struggled this way, some have been up every single night trying to soothe the child. It's their stories, hearing what their needs are, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and that has been what has helped me be the best that I can be. Is I think I have a wealth of experience. I have some good knowledge, but also let's just close this and let's listen to others and hear what they have to say because they're an important part of this
Hmm.
whole process too.
I mean, that reminds me that I had a guest on a while back, and he works out of Virginia Tech, and he's got a whole program where if you want to work in the field of disabil with the disabled children stuff,
Hmm.
you're gonna have part of the program is you're gonna have to go into the field and
Yes.
literally go to a house of a family who's got a disabled child and
Hmm.
see firsthand
Hmm.
what the child needs and how they act. And I
Hmm.
think that it's so valuable because it gives you firsthand experience,
Yes.
not just textbook.
Yes. Yes. And we have all heard it before, and others have said it. It takes so you know what to raise a child. So it needs to be a collaborative approach
Hmm.
with my team, and our parents are part of that team. So we need to work together.
Yeah. Now you work with diagnosis every day, but I'm curious, how do you stop seeing a label first and continue seeing the child underneath it?
Yes. So that's been another part of my growth over the years, where it was more of a textbook, or
Hmm.
for some of us psychologists and psychiatrists, we use something called the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, where you have all these diagnoses and all these classifications, and you must meet this criteria kind of thing. And and for some people, and I have
Hmm.
worked with some parents who have come to me for outside of the school. I have a private practice, so I see kids outside. I do, psych evaluations. So there are people who are looking for diagnoses. Tell me, label this, tell me. And I explain to them,
Hmm.
for certain purposes, if you're going to qualify for certain things or you're going to seek certain services, or if you're looking for answers for certain things, then these diagnoses, sure, they serve a purpose, but they
Hmm.
don't tell you the whole story. And it's really important for us to realize that, within group dynamics, right? And
Hmm.
outside of group dynamics, right? So within
Hmm.
within certain groups, there's more diversity than there is outside of certain groups. So we were talking about the neurodivergent connection. I mean, population is within that population. They may be labeled a certain way, but there's so much variability. There's so many differences. So many, very, unique kinds of things. And it's important that we gain the whole picture, and I have over years tried to move more away from labels and move more towards kind of, okay, so these are the behaviors, these are the characteristics, these are the issues that we're dealing with, and it's less important to focus on, what
Hmm.
it is termed or anything, and how are we coming up with solutions to these issues. And that's kind of what I've figured out over the years.
Now, there's also something unique about carrying forward something your family built. Did you ever feel pressure knowing this wasn't just a job, but part of your family's life work?
Reed, I think that's kind of you summed it up to about my whole development and career. Like the pressure is my mom, Dr. Tiegerman, Dr. Elmar's Tiegerman, really a tremendous powerhouse, very well known in the special education field. And there was always, to me, my own pressure was I going to be good enough? Was I going to be able to carry on this legacy, steer the ship? Such tremendous shoes to step into.
Mm.
And at a certain point, I said to myself that she is um, so tremendous and unique that there's no sense in me trying to replicate her and to be exactly like her. I had to be my own person
Hmm.
and forge my own pathway. And I think that that makes our journey special is this, and I said to you earlier on, Reed, is that her story of I wasn't able to take a time machine and go back and see what happened with her and my grandfather. So there was going to have to be something else for me besides the family piece of maybe going into the family business, but there was going to have to be something else for me that was going to embolden me or blaze me forward to my own path.
Yeah.
And I found that what I was passionate about was, working with others, wanting to help them as much as I could, but also their stories were always really amazing to me, and I cherish them.
Mhm.
Even for the people who came to us for a year. There are some people who come to us for a year and then they go on and they go to another school, or we have kids who have been with us since pre-K and then graduated, so been with us for 18, 19, 20 years, and developing those relationships with those kids, uh, with those families, and then seeing how what's going on in their life. They come back 5, 10 years later and saying, "Hey, I'm doing this," and Dr. T, it's so great to see you, and you were so inspirational to me. So, the stories and the people are very important to me, not just of the students. It's of the staff that we have too, because they're important parts of the story too.
Now, when you zoom out and look at where we are right now with autism awareness,
Yes.
neurodivergence, and education,
Yes.
what gives you hope and what still worries you?
Well, what I would tell you is that we are far, far further away from where we were many years ago. I
Oh, yeah.
think that when my mother started school in 1985, um, one of the reasons why so many parents wanted to stay was because they were afraid to go back to district. They were not, uh, there was no effort to mainstream. There was, put these children to the side kind of thing like that. So clearly there have been federal and state mandates to do away with that philosophy and line of thinking. And we have years of research to show that whether it be mainstreaming done the appropriate way, but through integrated classes, working with same age peers who may be having different strengths, so that may be proper models, but
Hmm.
with the neurodivergent population, it's not always just the typical population, the neurodivergent population learning from the typical. I think the typical is also learning from the neurodivergent population also about their strengths and what kinds of things can they do better based on working together. But there's still more work to go. And there
Hmm.
clearly has been a lot of talk in the news and in the research about the trends continuing to escalate as far as the
Hmm.
number of identified neurodivergent, population, whether that is something genetic based or whether that be something that is environmental in nature. It is still unclear, but we need to continue to create programming and supports to help all of our students to
Hmm.
succeed. And we have still have a ways to go.
What would a generally neurodivergent affirming education system look like?
Well, that's a great question. I think kind of what we do now
Hmm.
um, in our school, just unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, the only limit that we have is that we don't have um, some of the typical population in our schools. So I do know that the way that we structure our classrooms,
Hmm.
the way that we educate our support staff and our teachers, the way
Hmm.
that we structure our schedule, whether it be extended learning days for those that need it, extended school years for those that need it to create or spread out the curriculum, whether it be over 4 marking periods where we stretch it out to
Hmm.
5 or 6 marking periods, our work-based learning vocational training program, everything that we do with language. Uh, I've seen what many of our students, whether them starting out in our preschool programs or our primary school, elementary school, or if they transition into us in the middle school, high school, where they started, the way that they leave our programs is so unbelievable and it's transformational. And I know that I would stand by our school programming against anyone around because I think that we have still a lot to learn and know and to figure out and to grow. But we've been doing a pretty good job with helping our kids, based on their unique learning needs, to
Mm.
succeed and move on.
Now, what changes still need to happen inside schools?
Well, I think it's important to, as I mentioned earlier, is to hear parents out. So I think that meeting if it is every school is a little bit different. Our parents,
Hmm.
our teachers have greater access because we're not a monster of a school district, right?
Yeah.
So school districts may be thousands upon thousands of kids, and getting access to the board or getting access to your higher ups may be difficult. We're only about 600 kids in about six buildings, and we have adult services also. But our parents, our specialists, our teachers, our families know where to find me and Dr. Tate. So we're always very accessible. And we work every single year with our families through surveys, through having conversations with our families about how they think the program is working for their children, how the school is working. We have very intensive meetings with our administrative staff in each building. How are we looking this year? How are the kids responding to the curriculum, to their IEPs? Are they making progress? So these are conversations in addition to, and I'm not all about testing. We do regular evaluations and progress monitoring. So you're looking at
Hmm.
quantitatively some data, but we're always very open to speaking to others and saying, how are we doing? What can we do better? And the other thing that I think is really important, and all schools do this, they have superintendent's day.
Hmm.
What is unique to us is I think that, we really embrace professional development and really push on our families and our staff to say we have in our minds every single year about what kinds of trainings um, we think are important and kind of if we have any gaps anywhere, we go like we've got to fill this. So what are we going to do to help our staff grow? But we listen to our families and to our staff. What
Hmm.
else do you need? And we do 4 to 5 professional development days a year.
Hmm.
It is critical for our staff to get the most up-to-date training, cutting-edge research, evidence-based kind of programming so that they are as skilled as possible. It's continuing education. You want to go to a doctor? You don't want to go to one who doesn't know what they're doing, right? You want to go to the ones who are most up to speed on stuff. And our staff is we're always pushing them to learn, 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 ask questions. If there's something they need, ask us. We'll get it for them so that it's we are we it's our mandate to make sure that when a parent drops their child off, that we are ready and willing and able to give them the best. And that's what we do.
And finally, if there's a parent listening right now who feels exhausted, scared, or unsure whether their child will ever truly thrive, what would you want them to hear from someone who spent his life walking beside families in that exact space?
You may be tired. Whatever has beaten you down, whether it's the people around you, and it is hard, not just a neurodivergent child,
Hmm.
a parent today in our world or environment, it is very difficult to bring up a child. And whether it be a single household or a two-parent household, it can be exhausting. I have 3 kids myself.
Hmm.
It is a very, very difficult task. What I would say to this parent is whether their journey has been easy or medium or super hard, to never get discouraged.
Hmm.
And if they are exhausted, or if they've hit roadblocks, or if they don't have the answers, to not quit. There are people, there are
Hmm.
places that are there to help them, to educate them, to support them, to give them whatever tools that they need that are appropriate. It may be hard to find these agencies or these people out there, but they are out there and they are ready to help you no matter what the circumstance is. So what I would say to you is that if you are in a public school and if you're having, challenges in a public school, you need to definitely, be in touch with your, depending on where you are, whether it be in elementary, primary school, your classroom teacher, your building administrator. If you're in secondary, middle school, high school, speaking to maybe a school psychologist or a guidance counselor, administrator, and certainly teachers. There is off clearly in every school there should be a PPS director, which is a pupil personnel services, or a CSC, a committee on special education director, who you could go talk to. Sometimes that is helpful, sometimes that is not helpful. And you can certainly, there are advocacy groups out there, parent advocacy groups that can then help you. We are, Tiegerman, the agency, is
Hmm.
always here to help parents, even if they're not going to come or intend to come to our school. So we take phone calls. We have a parent liaison. Her name is Toya Davis. She is fabulous. She jumps on the phone with you and help you with any questions or concerns you may have regarding your child and wherever they are. Toya Davis is our one of our first parents. She's been with us for 40 years. Her son, Jonathan Davis, was one of our first students. He ended up graduating from high school, going to Howard University in Washington, D.C. So we're very, very proud of him. But Toya's been with us since the beginning. She was trained as a parent advocate by my mother, Dr. Tiegerman. So she is a tremendous asset that we have. And so we are always here to speak to parents and help parents if they intend or want information about coming to one of our programs, or if there is no intention, we will help you no matter what, or put you in the right direction.
And finally, where can people find out more about you online?
All right. So we have a website. And I'm not sure if you could see over here. Well, the phone number is there. It's 516-609-2000 and extension 100 for the receptionist, and they'll point you in the right direction. And it's www.tiegerman.org.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Dr. Jeremy Tiegerman. I'm Reed Miles. And remember, stay curious, stay fearless, and wherever you are, you're never alone. Thank you, Dr. Tiegerman.
Thank you, Reed, for your time. Thank you for having me.